Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's Athena event. This is one that I am super excited about, from our amazing moderator, Mara, to the Dynamo panelists you're going to be hearing from. Athena is one of those programmings that fuels us at the Michigan Chamber to empower women of all professional and career levels and making connections. So again, welcome. Please make sure that you use this chat box. Throw in comments, throw in your questions. It's going to be a great event. I want to first thank our sponsors who really helped make all of this possible. Our presenting sponsor, Consumers Energy. And also Lake Trust, who you're also going to be hearing from shortly as well too. Our platinum sponsor, PMI. Our silver sponsors, Waste Management, Hastings Mutual Insurance Company, and Amerisure. And our bronze sponsors, Mott Community College and West Shore Bank. And with that, I get the distinct privilege and honor of introducing Teresa Dubiel, amazing leader for Lake Trust. Teresa, welcome and take it away.
Thank you, Sarah. Lake Trust Credit Union is proud to be the co-presenting sponsor for this series that empowers women and provides great topics for us to explore and to grow. At Lake Trust, we continue to lift one another, empower well-being in our communities with our members, our team members, and look for ways to multiply positive impact with our partners. Throughout this series, the topics, presenters, and panelists have shared inspirational nuggets that apply both in our career and personal lives. We are proud of our partnership with Michigan ATHENA and the Michigan Chamber and the ongoing impact we can make together. You'll see Lake Trust Credit Union in communities throughout Michigan. We are eager to advance the well-being of families and businesses. At this time, I'll introduce Mindy Branish-Orta, the Director of Community Affairs from Consumer Energy. Welcome, Mindy.
Thank you, Teresa. As an Athena, I am honored to be part of a program that celebrates and encourages women everywhere to be their best authentic self. Today's topic of authentic leadership, illuminating your identity, is perfect for Consumers Energy because we are leaders in the clean energy space and we are illuminating Michigan with our energy. In fact, Consumers Energy is working to invest $172 million across Michigan to improve the reliability of our system and provide all of our customers affordable, equitable energy. To me, being an authentic leader means that we pause to reflect, accepting that we don't have all the answers, growing and learning in partnership with others, and adjusting our path as necessary. And at Consumers Energy, we realize that we're not perfect and we need to do more for Michigan's underserved populations and for our planet. To that end, we are committed to supplier diversity, diverse hiring practices, and reducing the financial burden on our customers. We have already given over $38 million to support vulnerable customers. And on a daily basis, we strive to protect the planet by harnessing renewable energy sources and leaving spaces better than we found them. Last year, we released 56 rescued turtles back into natural wetland habitats during our Mid-Michigan Pipeline project. I am just as proud to be a Consumers Energy employee as I am to be an Athena. Thank you for having me today. Now it is my pleasure to introduce President and CEO of Athena International, Tracy Costa.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Mindy. I am really excited to join you today. We are grateful for the continued success of Michigan Athena. A lot of exciting news coming from Athena International. We launched our new website last week. We're continuing to build it out, but it's mostly there. And if you're not familiar with Athena International, we are a catalyst for developing diverse, transformative leaders worldwide through experiential programs that ignite, amplify, and celebrate girls, women, and allies. The work that we do with our partnerships in our local communities is crucial now more than ever. Nearly 16,000 baby boomers are retiring every day, and only 4% of organizations are supporting leadership development at all levels. We're going to have a leadership gap. And pile on top of that, the World Economic Forum predicts it'll take a staggering 132 years to achieve gender parity. This is why Athena International is on a mission to positively impact the leadership narrative by encouraging workforce development and bring a balance in leadership voices worldwide. At the heart of everything that we do are Athena's 8 principles of enlightened leadership. Live authentically, learn constantly, build relationships, foster collaboration, act courageously, advocate fiercely, give back, and celebrate. Our research shows that these are the ways in which women lead: more collaborative and inclusive, relational style of leadership. And I'm going to take it one step further. This is the way that all great leaders lead. And today's employees are calling for and craving for this way of leadership. Developing leaders that exemplify these 8 principles is crucial to positively impacting the leadership narrative and our collective future. For a year now, I have been living the life of a digital nomad, visiting more than 50 Athena communities across the country and attending award events and interviewing some of our 8,200 past Athena Award recipients for our new Athena YouTube channel coming later this year. I've learned a great deal from these conversations, and there have been profound common threads throughout. Along with the immense pride that these communities share, we discuss their challenges, how many have lost their authentic self at some point, struggle with imposter phenomenon or self-acceptance, self-care, many wrestling with that really hard part of work-life harmony, or feeling that their current career is unfulfilling, or that they're alone in their challenges. And in the last 3.5 years, more than 1,200 youth, women and men from 25 different countries have experienced the solution to these challenges in our leadership development program. And what sets us apart in these experiences is that the Athena leaders learn that the solution exists within them, that they themselves are enough, that they are worthy of taking their seat at the table, keeping their seat at the table, or building their own table. And more importantly, when they do, to reach out and grab others to bring them along with them. Most leadership development programs are outward focused and teach individuals how to manage people. The Athena experience is different and teaches leadership development skills. It is empathy-based and inward focused, teaching both personal growth and professional development. Many of our participants have experienced pay raises, promotions, and all have reported an increase in leadership effectiveness. I had a senior leader at IBM tell me, "I have been through every leadership training known to man. This program not only transformed my leadership, but my life." And our participants also report a substantial increase in self-confidence, self-awareness, self-advocacy, and self-empowerment. Through our partnership with MindWire and the Predictive Index Behavior Assessment tool, our participants better understand their motivating needs and resulting behaviors, as well as gain the ability to more effectively work with others, thus impacting company culture in a positive way. This helps them leverage their natural, authentic strengths and how to turn their challenges into opportunities of growth. And best of all, the Athena community reminds participants that they are not alone in their challenges. And the magic happens in these live sessions, whether they're in our local communities in person or virtually through ours or hybrid. Athena is driven to bring our empathy-based, compassionate, inclusive leadership culture to everyone from young scholars to seasoned professionals. With leadership training now for middle school, high school, higher ed, and of course, men. Men want to be our allies and champions. We must all work together to positively impact the leadership narrative. We are stronger together. I'm excited to announce that in January, we are having our inaugural Athena Leadership Conference cruise. And we will be giving our award communities and our Athena Leadership Development Program alumni opportunity to register first before it goes to the general public and get early bird pricing. You won't want to miss out. We will be presenting national and global awards. There'll be networking opportunities, structured leadership development. workshops, panels, fireside chats, wellness activities, workshop opportunities for self-care. Participants will enjoy this limited availability, intimate and inspiring and rejuvenating journey by going on to our link that we'll be sending out through the Michigan Athena and in our Athena networking platform. So keep an eye out, and it won't hit our website until a couple of weeks after that. Our Athena community is going to get first chance at it. And register for our virtual leadership training or reach out to us and we'll let you know if there's one in your local community. And now I will turn it over to today's moderator. Welcome, WDIV TV4 reporter, Mara McDonald.
Thank you so much, Tracy. Thank you so much, Tracy. I appreciate it. We have a really wonderful panel today, and I want to introduce them to all of you. Number one, up out of the gate is Andy Poole, partner at Martin Waymeyer. Number two, Brandolyn Winchester Middlebrook, who is the Executive Vice President, Chief People and Purpose Officer at Lake Trust. And third, but not last, is Maggie Pallone, Senior Vice President and Shareholder, Public Sector Consultants. Ladies, welcome to the panel. All of you are dynamos and have done some amazing things. And I'd like each of you to introduce yourselves to everybody and give us a brief overview of you. So Andy, why don't we start with you?
Sure. Well, hi, everyone. As was mentioned, I'm Andy Poole. I am a partner and owner at Martin Waymeyer. We are a PR and digital strategy agency based in Lansing, but we do work all over Michigan and nationally as well. My background is in all things communications and marketing. I've worked in higher ed, I've worked in the technology sector, and I've worked in government. But 10 years ago, I transitioned to the agency world. I joined Martin Waymeyer, and 2 years ago, I became an owner of the company. And we are a majority women-owned company, which is something that I'm really proud of. I'm really excited to be here today and look forward to the conversation.
Thanks, Andy. Brandolyn, tell us about you.
Thanks, Mara. I'm Brandolyn Winchester Middlebrook. I'm with Lake Trust Credit Union. I work as our Executive Vice President, Chief People and Purpose Officer with the credit union. I am responsible for all human resources related functions, as well as internal communications, DEI, and philanthropy efforts. My background has spanned retail, hospitality, in addition to that, print media, before coming into the financial services world, where I've spent the last over 15 years, I'll say that, in this career and journey. Lake Trust is a community development financial institution, and it speaks to my passion, as it's a financial cooperative that works to help the world thrive. And so I am passionate about helping others, and the organization I'm in allows me to do that. Thank you.
Brandolyn, thanks. Maggie, you're up.
Yeah, thanks. And hi, everyone. Thanks for being here today. I'm Maggie Pallone. I'm a Senior Vice President and also an owner at Public Sector Consultants. We are a nonpartisan research and consulting firm based, like Andy, in Lansing, but we do work across Michigan and actually across the nation. And I also have a similar kind of winding background that led me here. I did work in both the state agency, in the Michigan legislature, and for a trade association before coming to PSC 8 years ago, and became an owner just in January. So a new owner. I have led our energy and environment team for the last 8 years, but an owner just for the last 4 months. And we are a wholly woman-owned company. So really proud to have 2 business partners that are also women that lead this company that's been here in Lansing for 45 years.
Maggie, congratulations on the new ownership. It's a big deal. Ladies, I'm not going to have each of you answer all the questions, but I would like you to start out with each of you answering this one. And this happened to me, I'd say, in the last 2 weeks. And we're not naming names, but this is a publicly traded company here in Michigan. Some of you probably work there. And the CEO told a family member, and I'm not going to give their gender, that they would like to rule their direct reports through fear. And they think that that is the way to get the most out of their people. Andy, I'm going to start with you. And I want to know if you ever worked for someone who has that philosophy. And as a partner, can you imagine using that as a way to run your company?
Well, yes, I think I've worked for leaders that have used fear as a tactic. I don't know if they led solely through fear, but as somebody who's just a naturally anxious person and a people pleaser, I mean, I guess it kind of works on me when I'm not a leader, but that is certainly not the way that I lead or that I want to lead. I think especially for women, there's enough fear and an imposter syndrome going on, coming into anything we do. It takes a lot to build up the confidence, or even in very seasoned professionals. So fear just isn't a great way to get the most out of your team. And I think I have experience with that, both as somebody who's been working under somebody who used that at times. So no, it's definitely not how I'd like to lead, or hopefully how my team sees me as a leader. I think leading by example is sort of my mantra. If I'm asking a team member or directing a team member to do something, I usually always try to show that I'm willing to do it too. I'm going to be the one who's also climbing under the table to plug in something, even if it's an important presentation, because, we're all here to do the best job that we can. And we all need to be good team players. So that's my leadership mantra, I would say.
I've always said that I'll dig a ditch if I have to. I may not like it, but I'm going to do it if we've got to do it. Brandolyn, I'm curious, in your career in finance and human resources, have you dealt with the person who thinks that ruling by fear is the only way to go?
I personally have not had the experience of working for someone that led with fear and working under that environment. But I have been around people who've experienced working in that environment. And my objective and goal is always to ensure that I am a partner in the work that I'm doing with the teams that I work with, and recognize that we are all here by choice, that we all have alternatives and options. And that is not the environment that is going to encourage the best or promote the person's best self. And so I try not to lead in that way, but also to encourage those that I'm around. And again, I mentioned I'm in human resources, so we have the opportunity to influence others in the organization and help to encourage leaders that there's different ways of getting things done. And if you can work in partnership with the folks that you work with and have a shared vision and goal, you get a lot farther.
Thanks,
It also
Brandolyn.
feels like, you can do that. You can lead with fear, sure. And you might be able to wring that washcloth like for a little bit, right? And get a lot out of a person for like a small amount of time. They're not going to want to stay at your organization, right? And as people who are in HR or business owners, like we know how difficult it is to hire and recruit and keep good people. And so that can be a strategy. Sure, you can lead with fear, but your person's going to go and look for a different job eventually, right? And so it's a tactic. It's not one, though, to keep your best performers at your organization and having them perform for over a long period of time at a high level, right? So sure, we've all had boss, or maybe not Brandolyn, lucky her, but we've all had people we've worked with their bosses that's their tactic. And that's why we're probably all sitting in the seats we're sitting in now, right? Because we're not at that organization anymore, having that person lead that way.
I mean, Maggie, I have worked for two who did that, and I will tell you, they both met a unlucky professional end. And I think that may have worked 20 years ago as a strategy, but like you said, attracting talent right now is difficult. And I don't know, you can probably answer this better than I can. Do you see younger people, especially women, coming to your firm who want somebody who, beats them with a stick and tells them how stupid they are and they had best shape up?
Yeah, no, right? The answer is no. It's it's an evolving world, and we were all chatting before we got on here today about just how different it is when we all entered the workforce. And you were willing to put up with some of that because you wanted to make it to the next echelon. You wanted to keep growing. And so I think we all have experienced kind of that mentality. But the young women that we're hiring at PSC, and quite frankly, the young men we're hiring at PSC, have a different view of how they want to spend their time and what they want their job to look like and how they want to progress in their career. And it's much different than what we came into, and we've had to adapt to that, most certainly.
And that sort of segues into the next question and I have. And Maggie, since you're up, let's talk about this. You are young to the ownership game, and transitioning from being the team person to being, the one in charge is a transition. And you were one of the guys or one of the crew. You're now, the elevated person. How hard of a transition is that?
Yeah, I've transitioned a couple times in different careers, and I would say at PSC it's been a little bit easier, right? The culture here that we've tried to create is a pretty flat organization, so it's maybe this transition's been a little bit easier. But we talk a lot about like what hat you're wearing, right? I want my door to be open. I want folks to be able to come into my office and be able to be met with empathy and have feel like I'm really championing them. But I also want them to know that my A team is the business, right? Like we have 70 people. We have to make decisions that allow for them to be successful. So it's always that balancing act between being their friend and being the boss hat, which Brandel and that's a hat I don't enjoy wearing as much. We have great HR professionals here that help us navigate that, but it's difficult. And I think it's especially difficult as you grow differently in the organization, right? Like you come in as colleagues and now you're sitting in a different seat. So I try to like be really clear. Like I want to be here. I want to listen to you. That's a hard line. Can't go past that line, right? Like that you got to go talk to your own boss. You got to go talk to your own supervisor, or like you got to go talk to your therapist, your friend, right? I can't be that for you. I'm navigating it. I think I do decent, but yeah, it's a growth opportunity for sure. Andy,
Brandolyn, thanks, Maggie. Brandolyn, from an HR perspective, do you try and coach people coming up through the ranks that you are now in boss mode, you're not in team and friend mode? And if so, how do you do it?
So as Maggie indicated, the world has shifted quite a bit since I entered the workforce, and the expectations on what a leader looked like 20 years ago is not what a leader looks like today. And so as we're in relational organizations and relational people, and people have a desire for connection, that separation between the leader and the people is not most effective. And we're all bringing our full selves into work every day, and being in an environment that embraces that full self is really important. And so my coaching today is very different. It's how do you build a partnership and a relationship? We each are here with a different set of responsibilities, but we are on one team. And so we can be collegial with one another, have relationships, understand what matters to each person, and also have a connection. But I also am very clear, and I leave the right impression that I do have an obligation to the organization, and I do have a responsibility to the organization. And so understanding that I hope that my team respects that position and respects that position, meaning that we all have a role in the organization to play, and that I do need to still be in a position to exercise that and not allow the relationship to get such where I am not able to carry out the mission that we have together.
There's a buzzword that's running around TV or media circles right now, and they're calling it nurturing leadership. Do you think that's a real thing? Is there such a thing as nurturing leadership?
I do. I really believe there is, that each person brings different strengths with them in the workplace. And the awesome avenue for leadership today is really the opportunity to help leverage someone's strengths and then also recognize things in them that maybe they don't see or can be cultivated more. And so as a nurturing leader, it's embracing that and taking an active role and being invested in that individual just as much as you're invested in the work that they do.
Thanks, Brandolyn. Andy, let's talk about conflict because it's inevitable. And how do you navigate conflict, especially when passions are high and people have differing viewpoints on how something needs to be executed?
So funny that you asked me this question, because in all of the personality tests that you can take or leadership tests, this is always the area that I'm really not great at. I'm going to be open and honest here. So I struggle to navigate conflict. A lot of what I do is to actively avoid it. And it's something that I'm still really working on. I really like strive for harmony. And so having tough conversations is really difficult for me. And I think that's what it made it difficult when I was transitioning from being a doer and like a team member and one of the group to being a boss or being a leader, is that you have to deal with more conflict. You have to give sometimes feedback. When we talk about tough feedback, it still is maybe nurturing, but it's hard for the other person to hear at times. And I would say that this is an area I'm still growing in. I don't have all the answers with it, but I have other people that I lead alongside who are really great with it, and I'm learning from them. And so I think one of the things that I do is I try to kind of put myself in their shoes and talk about, the times that I've failed or that I've struggled and why it's important that this is an opportunity to learn from it. In terms of like conflict in between, one of the things that I've also learned as a leader is that there's always conflict in between team members. Like somebody's always frustrated with somebody else. And it could be little things. But if you let those fester, then, they can become bigger issues and bigger culture issues. So I think addressing things right away, giving concrete examples, and really focusing on the overall work of the team and that we're all here to do great things. I think if the place that you work has a really clear mission and purpose, that makes it easier to overcome some of the conflict that just naturally happens between people and between coworkers.
When you said address it immediately. So back in the day, 100 years ago, when I was working for the ABC affiliate in Richmond, Virginia, I had a coworker who was a piece of work. And it was a man, and he was aggressively awful to me at work. And I thought I was being the bigger person by turning the cheek, ignoring it, and just letting it go. And it got worse and worse and worse. And I was complaining to a man I know who's a former Marine, recon Marine. And he said to me, he goes, "You got to learn right out of the gate that when someone, especially if it is a male colleague, crosses that line, that it needs to be acknowledged immediately, because everybody thinks that he said, I see it in women especially, that they think that turning the other cheek is the adult thing to do. You've got to address it immediately." How hard is that to do, though? Especially, do you think, for women?
Well, it's certainly hard for me. I think some of my colleagues are better at it. And I think having people that you can look to that set the standard for you. I mean, I have 2 other women on the leadership team with me that are really great with dealing with conflict. And so I've really learned from them. And you just have to practice it. So like you said, speaking up when something isn't right, practicing having the hard conversations. They will feel uncomfortable, but then as you start to do it more, it becomes something that you get more comfortable with. You have to practice it, and I'm still working on it.
I also think our employees and our colleagues expect it, right? Like one of the things that a lot of times that we get feedback around is like, somebody isn't performing, or and you're not addressing it, right? Because you don't want to have the hard conversation. But then your team members look at their leadership team and they wonder, like, do you not see this? Are you not in the loop, right? So one of the things that I always think about is just these authentic conversations and addressing them, because sometimes, right, you don't always know the underlying issues. And so coming in, asking questions, not making assumptions, but then having the conversation, right? I struggle sometimes also on the opposite end where I am direct and I maybe like Andy's colleagues don't mind sometimes having the more difficult conversations, but I don't always think they're difficult conversations. So I have to catch myself sometimes thinking I'm just having a conversation with a colleague, and they think that it's for them, it's a much more heated conversation than I know I'm coming into. So I always have to check myself and be like, okay, Maggie, yeah, their personality, their leadership style is different, and you need to acknowledge it, say it, and then be open to them maybe taking this conversation different than you are.
You know, Maggie, you said something really interesting when you said, they wonder, do we not see it? Are we not paying attention to what's going on? Do you think that drives quality employees away when it isn't acknowledged and when it's just allowed to run rampant, people behaving badly and maybe not doing what they should be doing, or being bullying behavior? I know that's an overused word, but it's a thing. Do you think that drives people away from your firm if top management is so disengaged or uninterested in dealing with it that they just don't acknowledge it?
Yeah, of course, right? It would drive me away if I was feeling like I was performing at 110 and my colleagues were performing at 50% and still getting the same recognition, and nobody was addressing it. Or it would make me want to go someplace where I felt like my contributions were being appreciated and that they were holding everybody to the same standard, right? At PSC, we have some values that we ask all employees to live by, and that's one of them. So if we're not holding all of our employees to those values, yeah, I would expect people wouldn't want to work here.
Maggie, thanks.
Mara, could I add on to that as well?
Of course, I was just hitting you up.
Oh, thank you. Maggie brought up some great points, and it does start with addressing the poor behavior when you see it. One of the things that I've noticed in my journey as a leader is that sometimes it's very easy for the technical things or the very concrete things or metric-based items to be addressed, but those things that are more behavioral or soft skill based, that are more personal characteristics, are sometimes more difficult to be addressed. And those are the things that we find are not approached typically in conversations by many leaders, because it's not concrete. But the mission alignment and the value alignment is so critical. And that's what the newer generations coming into our workplace are really looking for. They're looking for organizations that have a mission, that have a purpose, and then they uphold and live by that purpose. And so if you're saying you're committed to inclusion, as an example, and you have individuals in your organization that are experiencing an environment that inclusion does not exist, then you're having that unalignment and you're not addressing and tackling those tough issues that, although they may be tough, they are critical to keeping an engaged workplace and ensuring that everyone is having an equitable experience.
Brandolyn, on the flip side of that, and I think it's also an important skill to learn, and it's the choose your battles. And in HR, I'm sure you see a lot. And do you have advice for younger women, especially? When do you, how do you determine whether it's the battle to fight or to just say, it is what it is, and we're going to move on, and I'm just going to not be that person who's in Brandolyn's office all the time complaining bitterly about what's going on?
I think it's two things, right? It's about impact. What is the impact of the issue? who is it impacting as well? And so having an understanding of what the impact and who it is impacting is very critical. Ensuring that once you're addressing the issue, that you're taking into account how is it taking us away from our purpose? What is it not creating for us that we really want, or what is it impeding? Understanding that helps to understand if it's worth addressing. If you're finding that it is getting in the way of something that you're trying to achieve collectively, that's very important to address. I believe in ethics and integrity. Those are core and essential to me personally and what I believe. And if it's an ethical or integrity issue, I think they're very critical to be addressed. Because as it was said earlier by Andy, those things continue to happen undercover. They don't go away. And so until they're addressed, right, you're not taking an active approach to ensuring that the situation can be made better.
Thanks, Brandolyn. Andy, let's talk about empathy here for just a minute in how you deal with people who are unhappy or have conflict. Where do you draw the line where the rubber meets the road between empathy and the mission of what needs to be done?
Yeah, I mean, I think it all goes, we've talked a lot about values. So, I think a lot of organizations tend to have core values, and they talk about values that every employee needs to embody. And we interview, we hire, we fire, we have tough conversations based on our 4 core values, which are excellence, teamwork, growth, and balance. And we have, more descriptors of those 4. But when we have somebody that is maybe not happy or is maybe struggling with one of those values, we look at, is it something that that we can work on, that we can provide more guidance and training, and then being specific about what that looks like. I really like what Brandolyn said about if you're in sales and you're not meeting your sales numbers, that's a really concrete thing to talk about. But if you're somebody that really struggles to be a good team player, maybe, you struggle and when you get upset about something, you're more passive aggressive. Those are really tough conversations to have. But if you can do them in the context of your core values, it makes that a part of your culture, and something that I think, at least our younger team members can coalesce around. Like, they understand those 4 things. They're excited about them when they come onto the team. And then if we address performance issues around them, teamwork is a performance issue. It's not just how you work on the work itself, it's how you interact with the rest of your team. Growth and wanting to, become better at something. If you're finding that you're unhappy and you're, not doing what you can to grow into maybe a different area of work for your organization, or not able to kind of overcome some of these things, then that is a core value issue that needs to be worked on. So that's been really helpful for us with around some of those difficult conversations.
Is there a better way, or what is the best way for your team members to approach you if there's a problem? Because I think that a lot of the women on this webinar would love to hear from the head honcho's perspective. How do I approach you? What's the best way to approach you and say, this is not working for me and I want it to be better?
Well, I think it's important to remember that not everybody is going to have the courage to do that. And so you have to have regular check-ins and conversations where you can kind of pull out some of those things. And so for our team, we do that. We check in every quarter where we take our employees offsite with a one-on-one conversation with somebody from our leadership team and have those conversations. How are you doing? Are you growing in the areas you want to be? Like, what, are you satisfied with the role that you have? And then we can also talk about if there are core value issues or performance issues that we want to see addressed. But I think it's on leaders to proactively plan for that time, because a lot of employees, I mean, I've experienced it where one of my colleagues has had that conversation with somebody that I work with on a regular basis, and, or we work together on a certain client, and they don't speak up necessarily about an issue that they're having because they don't want to be seen as complaining or, not being a team player. But it is something that's really impacting them. So you have to set aside the time to have those conversations, and it has to come from the leader because it shows that you value hearing from them.
Andy, thanks. Maggie, I want to switch gears here for a minute and talk about gender roles for a minute. I am older than all of you, and my trajectory up was at a different time than all of you. And my first television job, I was told that I had one key goal, and that was to make sure that the coffee was ready for everybody. And that would never fly today. So Maggie, when you first started out and versus where you are now, do you see a difference in how women are treated in professional environments, especially at leadership levels?
A great question. When I first started here in Lansing, I had a mentor, a woman, and I was really trying to figure out how to make it in Lansing and what that looked like. And we were talking about how what I wanted to do. And she told me, Maggie, if you want to be successful, don't have children. And she said it with a straight face, right? Like she really did mean that. But if you want to be successful, be at the top in Lansing, you can't have women because you can't have children because there's not time for you to be both a good mom and a successful woman. And, that was just 20 years ago. So I look back on that and I just think about how much we've grown, but it still feels very much like I have to check myself often around this feeling of, am I doing it all? Am I doing any of it well? Am I being a good mom? Am I being a good business owner? Am I being a good colleague to my people? Am I being a good wife to my husband? Right? Like I have to think about that. I think about that often. I worry about that often, but I think it has changed so much. I cannot imagine giving that advice to a young woman coming up at PSC or anywhere else in Lansing, at a lobby firm, in a state agency, working in the legislature. It wouldn't even be part of my DNA, right? To think about that way. I think we can do it all, but we have to tell ourselves that we can, right? We have to tell ourselves that it's okay to be really, really present and working with a client for 16 hours on a Monday, and then go on a field trip with my kid on a Tuesday, and then show up and talk about leadership on a Wednesday, right? That we can do it all, and that we can find balance, but only if we let ourselves, because we're our worst critic, right? We are the ones that keep telling ourselves we can't do it all, or that I have to show up in a certain way. I think we need to tell ourselves more and more often that we can show up and with all those hats on and it be okay. That you can be successful and a mom.
Maggie, how do you handle someone who you don't think is working up to their full potential, especially if it's a young woman?
Well, I try to first understand what's causing it, right? Because we've all had seasons, whether you're a young mom or you have ailing parents, or you're maybe navigating both, right? You're that straddle generation that maybe has young kids and ailing parents. And you're
Yay!
yeah, right? That's the best of times. So trying to understand what's causing it first, right? Because I naturally want to jump to the conclusion. I know this about myself. I hire higher performers, and I just expect that everybody's going to be a high performer. So I have to check myself about what's happening, what's causing this. And then I've had to have a couple conversations recently about is this just even the right fit? Right? Because I think sometimes we come into this job, you think you know what you're coming into, and a year later you're like, oh, that's not what I thought it was, or I don't want to be doing this. And it's so hard to admit that. So sometimes it's just giving people the space to say, are you fulfilled? Is this filling your bucket? Like, you're showing up here 40 or 50 hours a week. If you're not all in, that's okay. I can help you go find something that can make you be all in and make you feel successful and make you feel fulfilled. So a couple things, right? Like, I want to hold people accountable, but I want to know what's happening outside their life that might be causing conflict, and then address that, right? Give them some grace. Then I want to understand if this is really what they want to do. And if it's not that, then to the point we had earlier, it's tough conversations about what we need to do to get you there. And if we can't, how can we help you exit in a way that helps both the firm and you be successful?
So that's not painful and ugly, right?
Yeah, it doesn't always have to be.
We
Go
use
ahead.
a kind of like a framework around understanding like the underperformance. I talked about the values, but we also have conversations around like does the person get it? Like, do they need support from like a skills standpoint or information or training? Do they want it? Is it an issue of like, do they want to do the role that we're asking them to do, or do they want to do this job? And then do they have the capacity to do it? So like we talked about, what's going on outside their life? Are there capacity issues that we're not aware of because they're being asked by other team members? So like it could be any one of those things or a combination of them, and having the conversation around what it might be can help direct you in like, okay, here's where I want to go in terms of trying to solve this problem. But yeah, and unfortunately, like the want it piece is a really important part of the conversation. Like, is this what you want? Is this really what is this making you feel good? Are you excited to come in every day? Because ultimately, like we get this one life, and if it's not a good fit, it's really important to try to drill down into why that is.
Do you
I
see
think
today? Oh, go ahead,
Can I
Brandon.
add just to that point
Sure.
too? So I think there's a side of, from a leadership perspective, working with the individuals who may be experiencing challenges or don't know if it's the right fit for them. But I think sometimes personally, we know when it's not the right fit anymore too for us. And that may be because the work is no longer enjoyable for us, or it may be mission alignment, going back to that. And you may find that it's not in alignment with what you value or allowing you to be your best self. And so I have been in that situation where I felt there was a role and that I was in, and it was no longer allowing me to be my best self. And that there were circumstances more so than the role that were catering to that. And so I had made the decision in my mind that it was maybe time for me to separate and start to look at an opportunity where the organization was more aligned to what I valued and what I needed. And so at that point, I had a conversation with the leader that I worked directly with. And I think it was eye-opening to them as well, is that some of those things that had gone unaddressed were part of that. And so they owned that those things were part of my experience and apologized and indicated it needed to be on them. And that certainly they were the type of organization that I thought that I had joined and that I wanted to be a part of. So I think that we as women need to have the courage to recognize that if something is no longer serving us and serving our highest self, that we may need to make a decision for ourselves and to do something that honors who we are.
Brandon, this is a question from the group. It says, how do you help team members work on a goal when they say they don't have any goals? I would imagine from an HR perspective, when you hear that, you're like, how do you manage that?
So I think you have to pull back the layers on that onion, right? And so finding out what the individual is passionate about, where do they see themselves in several years, or what do they want to be doing in several years? And then understanding what is the difference between where they are today and what it's going to take to achieve what they ultimately want. And then within that, I think you can identify some small steps with that individual that would be great milestones to helping to move them on the direction that they want. But I think it's more conversation and digging deeper into what is the life that they ultimately want to live, and then what is the difference between where they are today and that, and then identifying what can help them get there.
So
Maggie,
if I could just add on to that, because, I
Sure.
think we sometimes as leaders think that everyone wants to grow to be the leader, right? That like everybody wants to achieve this seat. And one of the things that we've really worked on and that I try to really respect is not everybody needs to grow up, right? You can grow out, you can grow in your skill set, you can grow from the seat you're in. And so sometimes I think we have to check ourselves as leaders to say, like, just because they don't want what we think they want, doesn't mean they can't both be like a really great employee or a really great contributor, right? So some people want a work-life balance that looks different than mine. That's okay, I think. I'm working on telling myself that's okay. Uh, I just think when I hear somebody say, what do you do when the person doesn't have goals? It just, recognizing that their goals might not be the same as yours, and that's okay. And having that conversation with them about what they want and then the expectations that you hold them to, if it's not a growth goal, right? If it's I want to be really good at doing this job and I want to do it well between the hours of 8 and 5, that could be okay.
Andy said it, she called it the want it. And I translate that into passion. Do you see passion, or is it a generational thing? How critical is that passion level to you, and do you still see it? When I first started in television, I mean, it was like, let's go. And today, the generation that's coming up it's not the same. It just isn't. Doesn't mean it's bad. It's just not the same.
I think.
Go ahead.
Okay. So I see it in some places, but I see passion for different things. And so I think for some of us, depending upon when we entered the workplace, like we live to work. And it's very different today with some of the folks that I'm seeing. They don't live to work. They work so that they can live the life that they want. And I think there's a lot that we can learn as some of us who've grown up in a different work world where things were valued differently. I think we can learn something from that, because personally, I forsake different parts or elements of who I am in my life. And with that different mindset that I'm seeing today come into the workplace, I think there's things that I'm personally learning too. So I think the passion is there, but it's in different things. And so how do we cultivate the passion so that in organizations, we can still achieve the things that are critical to our organization's success, but then also have a win-win where individuals can come and be better for having been there and be able to carry out what they want to be and what they want to achieve in their personal and professional life.
So we have like rolled through so much, and we're running out of time. And there's more to talk about. You guys were awesome. But because we have limited time and I want everybody to hit this, looking back, and Brandolyn, we'll start with you. Looking back on young Brandolyn right out of college, working her way up the food chain, what would you tell her that maybe she didn't know then, but she sure knows now?
So when I reflect back on what I wish I would have known when I entered into the work world, I was one of those individuals that set out and said, I want to be X. This is what I want to do. I want to be X. And so understanding, though, that different life experiences today are essential. And even though they weren't part of my plan, they were critical to becoming who I am today. And not from a leadership perspective, but who I am as a person, what I value, what I enjoy, what I want to do, how I feel fulfilled. And so I would say to young Brandolyn, any journey that is presented to you, look at what you can learn from it and embrace it. It may look like you're going off track from maybe what you ultimately want to do, but I believe in every experience, you can have a learning opportunity and something that can make you better for the future.
That's a very elegant answer. Mine is not as elegant, and I'll share it with you at the end. Andy, what do you wish that 23-year-old Andy had known back in the day that she didn't know, but she sure knows now?
Well, we had talked about this, we touched on it earlier, but I remember at one point being early in my career, I don't even remember what job it was, but it was something where I wasn't really feeling fulfilled in the work I was doing every day. And I remember kind of complaining about it to my dad, and he's like, well, you know what? You know, you don't have to love your job. Like, you don't have to love your job and what you do. And a lot of people don't. It's a job. That's part of it. And I think that was really like a big cultural, like that's the cultural shift I see in our younger employees. They're like, no, I'm going to love my job and I'm going to love what I do because I'm making a difference. So yes, there are some days where I have to stay up late to work and, hustle on a project or whatever it might be. And you do make the sacrifices, but I really see a difference in the things I do. I have the opportunity to work with like amazing organizations or on really important issues that are changing our state and hopefully like the world. Like that makes me fulfilled. So I would say I wish I could, tell my young self, like, you should be striving for that. Don't settle for, working for an organization that you don't feel like you're making a difference every day or where you dread to go in. That's not the best use of your time and your talent.
As my mom has always said, you get out of life what you're willing to settle for. Maggie, what would young Maggie like? What should young Maggie have known that still young Maggie knows now?
Yeah, and mine's probably not as eloquent either as either of these two. I was a bull in a china shop, right? I came in and I just thought that like I need to come in hard and I need to come in aggressively to be heard. And you just don't need to, right? Like don't. So young Maggie needed to hear that like slow down. You don't need to come in showing up like a man in order to be successful. You can show up as yourself. But show up, right? And that's the advice that I would give to anybody. Somebody once told me the world is run by those who show up. And it has proven to be true for me over and over and over again. So being present and being your own champion, those would be the two things that I would impart on anyone listening today.
Before I turn it back to Becky at the chamber, I just want to say for anyone out there who is one of those younger, I call them the junior mints at Channel 4. I was always the prior planning prevents poor performance person. Okay. I mean, I planned everything, I did everything, and I worried. And I would tell my younger me, worry early, worry often is perhaps not the best way to handle things, that you can be prepared without worrying and without constantly looking 5 years, 10 years ahead, and to enjoy the moment and not let anxiety and worry over, is this good enough? Am I good enough? Listen, if you want it hard enough, you can make it. And ladies, I think you are awesome. And I think you imparted all sorts of wisdom. And I think anyone would be lucky to work for any one of you. I'm going to send it back to Becky at the chamber, and she can wrap it up and take us home. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, and good morning. Thank you for being here today. Thank you to all of our amazing panelists and definitely our moderator, Mara. For those of you who don't already know me, my name is Becky Burka, and I am the Vice President of Member Engagement here at the Michigan Chamber of Commerce. We hope that this information today that was shared with you not only reminds you, but also inspires you to live out that truth that we are all individuals and have something unique and valuable to bring to the table. And your personal identity offers that key strength in your effective leadership style, both inside and outside of the workplace. So with that, the success of our events is not possible without the amazing commitment from our sponsors. It is their generosity that allows us to provide you with free and accessible resources. So today we extend our gratitude to all of our sponsors. First, our presenting sponsor, Consumer Energy, and also a presenting sponsor, Lake Trust Credit Union. Platinum sponsor, Philip Morris International. Silver sponsors, Amerisure, Hastings Mutual Insurance Company, and Waste Management, excuse me, and our bronze sponsor, Mott Community College and West Shore Bank. Your contributions play a pivotal role in our ability to empower women across the state. And for that, we deeply, deeply appreciate you, because together we're making a meaningful impact, and your support is instrumental in that. With that, we are very excited to announce the return of our highly anticipated Athena League taking place on September 25th at MSU University Club. This event was a huge success last year, and we truly enjoyed being able to network and learn so many valuable lessons from the Athena community in person. Registration is now open for this event, and we are currently offering early bird admission prices. So please scan the QR code and visit our website to secure your tickets, because they will go fast. We are already selling tickets. We are looking forward to this wonderful event and hope to see you all there. Later today, you will also receive an email survey from us. Take a moment and share your thoughts about today's event, because it definitely helps us tailor that top-notch programming specifically for you. Your input is invaluable, and we appreciate your feedback in helping us grow. With that, as we step into spring, we hope the lessons learned today will help you grow into the best version of yourself. And as always, thank you for your active participation in the chat box and the Q&A box, the energy you bring to our events. We hope to see you in September, and have a great day.